BTS News Today. The news of the military camp again rocked the South Korean entertainment world. This time, it was not about training strategies, nor about prestigious achievements in the midst of mandatory state duties. It's about two big names who never stop stealing the spotlight: Jungkook and Park Jimin. In the cold of a military atmosphere full of discipline and order, there is one moment that manages to create warmth, as well as small cracks in the control of one's emotions. A look, not just any look, that came from Jungkook. Jimin, a figure known for being calm and full of confidence, shake for a moment. The story begins with a joint training session involving several different divisions, including the division where Jimin was assigned and the division where Jungkook assumed his duties. Although the two are not in the same place officially, their meeting in the open field became a rare moment that was highly anticipated, both by themselves and by fellow trainees who have secretly known of their closeness in the past. The relationship between Jungkook and Jimin is not a new one among army and entertainment industry observers. Since their debut with BTS, the two are known to be very close, protect each other, understand each other without words, and it often shows such strong chemistry in front of and behind the scenes. However, the military changed things. When all have to take off their celebrity status and melt in unity, Jungkook and Jimin renounce their public identities and become ordinary soldiers. Even so, nothing can mask the fact that they are still two souls who have been bound for so long. And on that day, Jungkook's gaze seemed to relive all the memories they had together: laughter, tears, world travel, even the times when they just sat in silence yet felt so close. According to an internal source who did not want to be named, the training session went on as usual until one of the instructors decided to give a short break. That's when Jungkook, who was standing not far from where Jimin was sitting, turned his face away. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but it is enough to create a wave of deep emotions. The gaze conveys not only warmth, but also questions, longing, and perhaps regret. Jimin, who initially seemed strong and focused, suddenly shifted his eyes, as if unable to withstand the emotional pressure that suddenly flooded his mind. Some of their colleagues noticed a change in Jimin's attitude. A witness mentioned that Jimin looked down in silence after that eye contact. He closed his eyes for a moment, then took a deep breath as if he was calming himself down. No words are said, but the atmosphere becomes quite tense for those who are sensitive to the emotional atmosphere. Jungkook himself, after giving that look, he stood still but couldn't hide the slight change in his expression. There is a constancy that is slowly eroded by feelings that are difficult to explain. Much has been speculated about what really happened between the two of them. Is this a sign of Jungkook's concern for Jimin's condition? Or is there a hidden message that only the two of them know? Speculation grew widely among fans after this news spread. Social media was instantly filled with short videos and snippets of images showing the moment, complete with emotional analysis from the army who were always keen to read the facial expressions of their idols. Some fans suggested that Jungkook's gaze indicated guilt, perhaps because of something that had happened before they were drafted into the army. Others believe that it is an affectionate look that can only be expressed through small gestures because they can no longer speak freely. There are also those who say that Jimin was in a less stable mental state, and Jungkook realized it, so he tries to convey support in his own way. Psychologists who often analyze the nonverbal expressions of public figures call such a gaze a form of high-level emotional communication. A gaze that lasts only a few seconds, but it is able to make a person lose focus and fall into silence. It is proof that their emotional relationship is very deep. Said Dr. Min So-yeon is an expert in interpersonal communication from Seoul University. He added that in conditions such as the military, where emotional interaction is very limited, eye contact becomes the most powerful communication tool to convey a sense of care and intimacy. How did Jim feel at the time? There was no direct statement from him, but a few days after the incident, Jimin looked more reserved than usual. He was also caught on camera daydreaming in the dining room, away from the crowd of his colleagues. A soldier who had time to talk to him personally revealed that Jimin was thinking about many things, but reluctant to discuss it in detail. He just said that sometimes unspoken things are stronger than words. Say it. Meanwhile, Jungkook continues to carry out his duties with high discipline, but there was a moment when he was seen walking alone in the afternoon, looking up at the sky holding a small notebook. Many believe that he poured out his heart in writing, because it was Jungkook's habit for a long time. He once said in an interview that writing is the best way to process feelings that cannot be expressed directly. Armies from around the world responded in various ways. Some were touched, some were in tears to see how deep the relationship between the two was, and some are worried about their mental state during the draft. The hashtags #ProtectJungkook, #JiminStayStrong, and #JungkookHeartSpeak have been trending globally for several days. The fan community also sent letters and support through official military channels to encourage their idols. However, not a few also considered that this incident opened the veil of the relationship between Jimin and Jungkook, which had been full of mystery. This moment is considered a symbol that their closeness is more than just an ordinary friendship. It was the gaze of someone who had a long story with you. A story too deep to forget, too complicated to talk about, it's too beautiful to deny, wrote one of the army in an open letter that went viral on Twitter. On the other hand, Big Hit as BTS's agency has not yet given an official comment on this incident. However, some agency staff close to them admitted that the emotional connection between BTS members has always been the group's main strength. They are not just colleagues, they are brothers. And when brothers are separated in such a situation, every eye-catching moment becomes an invaluable emotional history, said one of the staff who had accompanied BTS during the world tour. Now, time goes on, and the two are still in the midst of their devotion. But the story of the gaze continues to resonate. Like a small splash in a quiet lake, he created vast ripples in the hearts of the fans, and perhaps also in Jimin's own heart. Will that moment bring about a change in their relationship? Or will it just be an unspoken memory stored in silence? One thing is for sure, Jungkook's gaze is not just a gaze. It is the language of a longing heart, which wants to speak but is hindered by protocol, who wants to touch but can't reach. Dan Jimin, with all the constancy he had shown, it finally faltered. Faltering not because of weakness, but because his heart is still alive, still getting to know love, and still responding to the energy that comes from a meaningful person. This story is not finished. It may even have just begun. And for ARMY around the world, this is a new chapter in the story of two men who once walked side by side in joy and sorrow, and now, staring at each other in silence, in the middle of the training field, under the same sky, but in a world that feels so different. That look, perhaps, is hope. And Jimin's wavering is not a sign of the end, but rather the beginning of something deeper than words can describe. From that day on, the changes in Jimin became more and more noticeable. He continues to carry out his duties as a soldier with great precision and dedication, but the spirit that usually lit up from within his eyes seemed to dim slightly. The fellow soldiers began to notice that something was bothering his mind, although no one dared to ask directly. Jimin is not the type to open up easily, especially in an environment like the military, where any emotion that is too noticeable can be considered a sign of weakness. But anyone who has witnessed the relationship between Jimin and Jungkook knows that whatever happens between them cannot be taken lightly. Meanwhile, Jungkook didn't show much of an open expression after the gaze incident. He chooses to immerse himself in solid workouts and routines. Even some soldiers say that he began to take additional shifts, like deliberately wanting to drown his mind in busyness. But as night fell and the dark sky enveloped the headquarters, Jungkook is often seen sitting alone, staring at the one star that always appears in the same corner of the sky every night.
Really changed, man. All your music in a